been your experience of Lancashire Police Force?
You know, we were asked this the other day on radio, and not once in 4 years since we started this have we had an issue. And you can tell this because when we did that field last year, and we went in and it was a civil action to cause a land dispute, the first phone call I made was the Lancashire Police to say, can you facilitate my right to peaceful protest? As far as I'm concerned, all the way through this, your role in society as a police officer, and particularly in moments of protest, is facilitate the safety of everyone involved in that protest, including me and other activists. So I consider that we should work hand in hand. I mean, it hasn't always gone well at protests for people, but I would say that the Lancashire Police, because we've had a tight relationship and kept each other informed on things, has been quite amazing. You think back to last year when we had the march along the seafront, and they didn't police us. They had a line of police, obviously, a street away, in case, but the whole thing went without a hitch because there wasn't a police officer inside. Because people don't always require a uniform to behave.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just behave, you're a regular, everyday person with good morals.
And I'd echo that, and your experience, Tina, within Lancashire has been very reflective of the way that we have an approach to dealing with protest policing and policing in general. It's about understanding what the threats are, it's about looking at the risks and putting the right resources in, and it's about communicating with people. It's about having dialogue in the planning, making sure that we understand what the protest is going to be about, who's going to be here. We can then assess it and say, do we need to police it at all? And I know there's been protests here at County Hall over the last couple of years where there's been no police presence at all. Put in as many police officers as we feel is necessary to police a protest or whatever type of event it might be. And that's based around safety, it's based around the risks that we might perceive, people that we know that might be attending, that might use an unlawful protest method that we might have to deal with. But primarily, we're more than happy to facilitate peaceful, lawful protest. And as we've demonstrated over the last 2 or 3 days, it's about engaging with people, conversing with people. I know that myself and the officers that have been working here, we've learnt an awful lot about the reason for you being here, which has helped us to understand the dynamics of the crowd, it's helped us to understand the frustrations of the crowd. Every single officer that's worked here within the last few days has been talking to the crowd, in and amongst the crowd, and I think that we've done a lot to do a bit of myth busting ourselves with people that have maybe had bad experiences in the past, build some relationships so that if fracking goes beyond today within Lancashire, we've continued to build the relationships which you and a smaller number of people have had over the last 4 years. There's now a larger number of people who know our faces and know what we're all about, and I'm really, really pleased with the way the protest has gone from our perspective, and I know you are from your perspective.
Certainly what you said about communication, to me that's been the key thing, is as long as the communication channels are open, and obviously there are things we can't always tell each other, but I've not felt uncomfortable coming and saying, I think you're making us look like criminals, there's too many of you, it's intense, and then having that discussion about why you felt it was necessary and why maybe we felt it was a bit intrusive, and then finding our equilibrium on that. But I think we've had a lot of cooperation in that sense.
There's been times where we've had to bring a few more officers in, and there's been good valid reasons for that, and it's caused a little bit of unrest within the protest group. But once people have understood why we've done certain things, there's not one person has remained unhappy or concerned over it. And it's usually because we've seen something or are aware of something that if we don't just do something to prevent something happening, it's going to turn what has been a completely peaceful protest into potentially unlawful protest, and that is where we might have to change our tact. So my view is we'd rather do something preventative rather than then have to take positive action afterwards.
And by the same token, one thing I think that I would have to say is this. I think it's been important for you to watch us use every democratic lawful process to reach a point that we will reach on Monday where we have exhausted all democratic process, and then to sort of maybe consider as human beings how we would be feeling at that point should things be done in an unjust way by people who are supposed to serve justice. So that's where the dilemmas start, and I don't know where we go to with that. But that's just that, you know, it's very hard when the people you rely on to enforce your laws fairly and equally in a democratic society, and then you hear about secret meetings and that they're intimidated, that our councillors are intimidated. In some ways, I think we need to fight for them too. And you know, we said all the way along that, even this morning I said, you know, there's together for quite a long journey, and we're all reaching the same culmination point that you must have got up this morning feeling pretty much how I got up this morning and how the councillors got up this morning, where you're in that disappointment from yesterday, anguish over what will happen on Monday, and just the endurance of getting through the next 2 days. So we're all roughly at the same point, which I think there is something in that, and that's what's different here that I've experienced in other places where maybe you get different police officers at different times and you don't get to develop that awareness of each other's reasons and behaviour.
I understand, and I know that whatever the outcome is on either today with Rosica and certainly Monday with Preston New Road, whatever that outcome is, some people will be pleased and some people will be disappointed, and wherever it goes from there, I hope that the relationships that we've continued to build with yourself and other people here this week will pay dividends, whatever the future holds.
I think so.
So that if there are future protests, there's a better start position than there probably was on Tuesday when some of the that people are now quite happily talking to the police officers came here on Tuesday with a fairly negative view of police officers, and I think that we've probably done a lot to turn that around.
Yeah, I think so, especially now that you can play the drums.
Absolutely.
So you're saying there were a few situations earlier on in the week where you felt that you had to take measures to stop things escalating. What type of thing was happening there?
We had some information that people might be using tactics that could be construed as unlawful. I'm not going to go into specifically what they are. So we had certain individuals that we believed might do something that would make the protest unlawful. So we just repositioned some police officers in a preventative role. Rather than them being a little bit spread out further down the street, we just brought them in to the protest area a little bit closer so that they could keep a more watchful eye and acts as a deterrent. And it worked because we've not had any issues. There's been nothing happened at the protest at all here at Pitt Street that's been unlawful at all, and that has to be a huge success because we do know that other protests in other areas have developed and have had problems that have become unlawful and action has had to be taken. If we get to the end of this week without any arrests, then that's a success for us. There's national models that we work to, so various bronze commanders, silver commanders, senior officers, they'll go in, it's a national training package to do those courses. Every police force will have a way of working that has some similarities, but different police forces will do it differently because obviously it would depend on the way that the chief officers and the senior managers, the policing style within a force might vary from one force to another because it's down to the way that an individual team of people that make decisions about how we're going to police will direct their officers to some degree. Here in Lancashire, it's friendly when it needs to be and it's firm when it needs to be. It's about talking to people, it's about understanding what the issues are, recognising what the threats are, putting things into place to prevent things happening that you might not want to happen, and dealing with things when they do happen. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it in a professional way, it doesn't mean that we can't do it in a friendly way. And I think as we have demonstrated this week, it's about dialogue. There's been almost a constant dialogue between myself and the officers working for me and Tina and other people representing other protest groups as part of the overall protest.
Thanks very much.
We're the Lancashire Nanas, and for quite some time now we've been putting on our tabards to fight the fracking in Lancashire and anywhere in the UK or anywhere. We're tired now, we all need a nana nap, but this threat gets more imminent every day. We have here a list of 150 academics, scientists, lawyers, activists, celebrities, artists, designers, etc. who put the name to the Let's Talk Fracking campaign and signed a letter that went to Downing Street. The Nanas now ask from our hearts for your help. Next Monday we face again the decision whether fracking is allowed to go ahead here in Lancashire. We ask if you can be here, please come and support us. If not, please send us a message of support, a video, an email, anything we would do. But please help your nanas and please save Lancashire and the rest of the UK from fracking.